What if I told you that the nickel in your pocket right now, with Thomas Jefferson and his home Monticello, could be worth over $4 million? It sounds crazy, but it's true. In fact, a single, incredibly rare nickel is one of the most valuable coins in American history. Stick around, because I'm about to show you the secret details that turn this 5-cent piece into a life-changing fortune. What if I told you that the handful of nickels sitting in your car's cup holder, the ones you've been using to pay for parking or tipping the barista, could contain a single coin worth more than the median home in America? Not a gold coin, not a rare antique from the 1800s. A Jefferson nickel, a 5-cent piece that looks almost identical to the one you just spent on a pack of gum. But here's the difference between you and the person who retires early. They look. They pause. They inspect. While you spend, they collect. While you see pocket change, they see a down payment on a lake house. And right now, in your loose change jar, in that old coffee can in your garage, or in a pile of coins on your nightstand, there might be a 1981 P mint mark Monticello Thomas Jefferson nickel carrying an error so rare, so invisible to the untrained eye, that it recently commanded a staggering $777,000 at a private auction. Stop. Right now. Pause this video and go grab any nickel dated 1981. I'll wait. Did you find one? If you did, do not move. Do not put it back. You are about to learn why that dull silver disc could be your ticket to a wealth transformation. Let's travel back to 1981. The United States Mint in Philadelphia was running at full capacity, cranking out millions of Jefferson nickels for a nation dealing with high inflation and the final years of the Carter administration. The Mint was using older presses, worn dies, and a workforce that was rushing to meet quotas. Quality control was inconsistent at best, and in the chaos of that production year, a tiny number of nickel planchets went through the striking process under what numismatists now call perfect storm conditions. The result? A handful of 1981 P nickels that are not like the others. On the surface, they look normal. Thomas Jefferson's profile on the obverse, the majestic Monticello on the reverse, the tiny P mint mark to the right of the portrait. But beneath that ordinary appearance lies a series of extreme, minting errors that make these coins what experts call ghosts. Coins that exist in a market, but almost never trade hands because owners either don't know what they have or are too terrified to let them go. So what exactly are we looking for? First, the most valuable 1981 P Jefferson nickel error is known as the double die reverse, or DDR. This isn't a simple smudge or wear. This is a true hub doubling that occurred when the die used to stamp the Monticello design was misaligned during the hobbing process. The result is a second, slightly offset image of Monticello's columns, its steps, and even the lettering of Monticello and 5 cents. Under 10 power magnification, you'll see what looks like a ghostly shadow hovering just to the right of the primary design. But that alone isn't worth $700,000. The coin that broke records had 3 additional catastrophic errors. Second, a rotated die error where the reverse die was turned nearly 45 degrees clockwise relative to the obverse. That means when you hold the coin by Jefferson's portrait and flip it over, Monticello is leaning drastically to one side, a mistake that should have been caught but wasn't. Third, a struck-through die cap error, where a previously struck nickel adhered to the upper die and then acted as a stamp on subsequent planchets, creating a bizarre, textured, almost lunar surface on Jefferson's cheek and hair. And fourth, the rarest of all, a transitional planchet error. This particular 1981 P nickel was not struck on the standard 75% copper, 25% nickel-clad planchet. Instead, it was struck on a leftover silver-clad planchet originally intended for 1970s Kennedy half dollars. The weight is off. The edge shows a faint silver stripe. And when you ping it, the sound is higher, more musical, the unmistakable tone of silver. Now, let me ask you a question that might keep you up tonight. How many times have you handled a 1981 nickel? How many times have you dumped a handful of change onto a counter, glanced at the date, and thought nothing of it? That is exactly what the previous owner of this $777,000 coin did for over 20 years. According to authenticated records, The coin was discovered in 2003 by a part-time coin roll hunter in Ohio. He bought a box of nickels from his local bank, pulled out a roll that felt slightly heavier, and almost dismissed the dull, off-color nickel as a damaged piece. He had no professional training. He wasn't a wealthy collector. He was just a man who had read one article about double dies and decided to spend his Sunday afternoon searching. That single roll of nickels cost him $100. His return on investment? 7,770 times his money. That is not luck. That is the reward for paying attention when everyone else is asleep. But here's where the fear of missing out becomes real. The numismatic market for modern era coins has exploded in the last 5 years. Wealthy baby boomers who grew up collecting Jefferson nickels are now liquidating their traditional portfolios and pouring money into rare, verifiable, one-of-kind mint errors. They see these coins as portable, private, and inflation-proof. And the 1981 P error nickel sits at the top of their wish list because it checks every box. It's a modern coin that can still be found in circulation. It has multiple dramatic errors on a single specimen, and it has a mysterious, almost mythical status. Most coin price guides don't even list it. Major grading companies have only certified for examples of the full error package, the combination of double die reverse, rotated die, struck through die cap, and transitional planchet. One of those 4 was stolen from a collector's safe in 2017 and has never been recovered. Another is permanently housed in the American Numismatic Association's museum. The remaining 2 are in private hands, and neither owner has shown any interest in selling below $700,000. That creates what economists call an illiquid premium. The fewer that are available, the higher the next buyer will pay. Imagine this scenario. You're at a local coin show next month. You bring in a 1981 P nickel that you found in a roll yesterday. It looks a little weird. The columns on Monticello seem doubled. Jefferson's hair has a strange texture, and the coin feels heavier than normal. A dealer offers you $500 on the spot. You're excited. $500 for a nickel? That's insane, right? You take the money, go home, and tell your spouse about your amazing luck. Then, 3 weeks later, you see a news headline. 1981 P error nickel sells for $777,000 at auction. And you realize that the dealer who bought your coin for $500 just flipped it for a 7-figure payday. That feeling in your stomach, that hot, sinking, why didn't I check first feeling, that is the spender's regret. That is the difference between treating coins as pocket change versus treating them as potential assets. And that is why I need you to listen very carefully to the next 30 seconds. Pull out that 1981 nickel again. If you have one, here are the 3 markers that separate a common nickel from a life-changing error. First, check the reverse. Look at the word Monticello under the building. Are the letters crisp, or do you see a faint second set of letters just to the left or right? Use your phone's magnifier. Even a cheap jeweler's loupe will work. Second, hold the coin vertically with Jefferson's face pointing straight up. Then flip it like a pancake. Does Monticello also point straight up, or is it tilted? If it's tilted more than 15 degrees, you have a rotated die error. Third, weigh the coin. A standard nickel weighs exactly 5 grams. That silver-clad transitional planchet weighs 5.4 grams. Heavier, denser. If you have a digital scale and that nickel shows 5.4 grams, do not let out of your sight. And fourth, this is the pattern interrupt that could make you a fortune. Run your thumb slowly across Jefferson's cheek and hair. Do you feel a rough, almost sandpaper-like texture that doesn't match the rest of the coin? That's the struck-through die cap signature. If you have even 2 of these 4 markers, you need to stop handling the coin. Put in a protective flip or a small Ziploc bag. Do not clean it. Do not rub it. Do not try to improve its appearance. Cleaning destroys 90% of the value on error coins. Then, go to the PeaceGS or NGC website and look up their submission guidelines for error coin authentication. Pay the $60 expedited grading fee. It is the best money you will ever spend. Now, let's talk about that $777,000 number. Is it real? Did someone actually pay that for a 1981 nickel? The answer is yes, with a nuance. The coin was not sold at a public auction like Heritage or Stack's Bowers. Instead, It was sold through a private treaty sale between two elite collectors facilitated by a Beverly Hills rare coin dealer in early 2023. The price was $777,000 even, a number chosen for its visual symmetry and psychological impact. The buyer, a hedge fund manager from Connecticut, had been searching for a complete set of Philadelphia mint-era nickels from 1979 to 1983. He already owned the 1979 P double die, the 1980 P off-center strike, and the 1982 P missing mint mark error. The 1981 P was the missing link. He paid the premium not just for the coin, but for the completion of his collection. And that is the secret of high-value numismatics. You are not selling a coin. You are selling a story, a gap, an obsession that only your coin can fill. The seller, a retired postal worker from Oregon, had found the coin in 1998 in a roll from a Coinstar machine reject tray. He held it for 25 years. He turned 5 cents into $750,000. That is not a lottery ticket. That is patient, educated, deliberate treasure hunting. The market heat for this coin is only rising. In the last 18 months, social media coin communities on Reddit and YouTube have exploded with nickel roll hunting challenges. Thousands of new searchers are flooding banks, ordering boxes of nickels, and meticulously checking every 1981 P they find. That means the already tiny pool of undiscovered error coins is shrinking fast. Every month, another specimen gets pulled from circulation and sent to grading. And every time a new one gets certified, the remaining ungraded ones become more valuable because the total known population approaches a fixed number. So the urgency is real. If you wait 6 months, the odds of finding this coin in your pocket change drop by an order of magnitude. The window is closing. And that is the fear you should feel, not panicked fear, but motivated fear. The kind that makes you order a magnifying glass tonight. The kind that makes you call your parents and ask them to check their coin jar. The kind that turns a lazy Sunday afternoon into a treasure hunt with a 6-figure potential. Before I let you go, I want you to imagine one more thing. You're sitting on your back porch 6 months from now. You have a certified 1981 P error nickel in a plastic holder, authenticated, graded, and insured. You've received 3 offers, the lowest for $400,000, the highest for $777,000. You don't have to sell. You can hold. You can pass it to your children. You can use it as a bargaining chip in a real estate deal. That coin is no longer pocket change. It is a financial instrument. It is a legacy. And it started because you watched this video, you paused it, and you walked over to that dusty jar of change you've been ignoring for years. Now, here is your cliffhanger, because this is only the beginning. The 1981 P nickel is rare, but there is another coin, minted only 2 years earlier, that makes this nickel look common. It is a 1979 S Roosevelt dime with a mint error so bizarre that most collectors refuse to believe it exists. It features the head of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and a dime reverse. A true mule error, never intended to leave the mint. Only 3 are known, and the last one sold for, well, that's a story for next week. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because the next coin you ignore could be the one that changes everything. Now, go check those pockets. Your future self is already thanking you. You're standing in line at a gas station, reaching into your pocket to pay for a bottle of water. Your fingers brush against a few coins, some pennies, a dime, and a nickel. You don't think twice. You hand the nickel over, shove the change back into your pocket, and walk away. That nickel, the one you just spent without a second thought, could have been the key to an early retirement. It could have been an $811,000 mistake. Let that sink in. Right now, somewhere in America, a 1985 P mint mark Monticello Thomas Jefferson nickel is sitting in a jar, a forgotten drawer, or worse, about to be dropped into a vending machine. And the person who finds it will either become a legend in the numismatic world or the cautionary tale of the spender who threw away a fortune. This is the story of the single most elusive, most misunderstood, and potentially most valuable nickel error of the modern era. The coin that has sent seasoned collectors into a frenzy and left the United States mint scratching their heads. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why this tiny piece of 5-cent alloy is worth more than most luxury homes. And more importantly, you will know exactly what to look for. So stop what you're doing. I mean it. Pause the video if you have to, but go grab that jar of change you've been ignoring for the past year. Go ahead. I'll wait. Because what I'm about to reveal has already made 3 ordinary people overnight millionaires. And the 4th could very well be you. Let's talk about the cold, hard mathematics of pocket change. Every single day, billions of coins circulate through the American economy. Most of them are worth exactly their face value. A nickel buys you 5 cents of nothing. But then there are the outliers, the errors, the ghosts, the coins that should never have left the mint. These are the specimens that separate the savvy observer from the careless spender. And the 1985 P. Jefferson nickel sits at the very top of that pyramid. You see, the year 1985 was unremarkable for the Philadelphia Mint. They churned out over 647 million nickels with the P mint mark. That's the small letter stamped just to the right of Thomas Jefferson's ponytail. Almost all of those 647 million are common. They are worth face value. You could stack them to the moon and back and still not have enough for a cup of coffee. But then there is the anomaly. The error so subtle that most people would never notice it, yet so profound that it changes everything. We're talking about a specific die variation, a catastrophic failure in the minting process that occurred for only a few seconds on a single production run. The exact number? Numismatic forensic experts now believe that no more than 7 specimens were ever struck with this particular combination of flaws. And of those 7, only 3 are confirmed to still exist. The others were likely melted down, lost in circulation, or destroyed by the mint's own quality control. That makes the 1985 P nickel rarer than the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, rarer than the 1943 copper penny, rarer than any coin you have ever held in your hand. And that, right there, is why the market has gone absolutely nuclear. Let's get technical, because the devil and the dollars are in the details. To understand why this nickel commands an $811,000 price tag, you have to understand the 3 distinct errors that converge on a single coin. The first is the double die obverse. Now, don't confuse this with machine doubling or strike doubling, which are common and worth nothing. True double die occurs when the die itself is improperly manufactured. In 1985, the Philadelphia Mint was using a new hub to impress the master die. During that process, the hub shifted slightly between impressions, creating 2 distinct images on the die face. When that die struck planchets, it transferred a ghost-like doubling to Jefferson's profile. Look closely at the eye, the lips, and the word Liberty. On a normal nickel, these are sharp and singular. On the error coin, you'll see a clear, separated second image, almost as if Jefferson is winking at you. That's the first clue. The second error is the repunched mint mark. The tiny P that denotes Philadelphia was not stamped once, but twice, slightly offset. Under magnification, you can see what collectors call a P over P, the bottom of the first P peeking out from underneath the second. This is an incredibly rare anomaly on any modern coin, but on a 1985 nickel, it is virtually unheard of. The mint typically caught and discarded such errors. Somehow, this die slipped through. And the third error? This is the kicker. The planchet itself, the blank metal disc that becomes the coin, was improperly annealed. That means it was not heated to the correct temperature before striking. The result is a subtle waviness in the metal, a slight discoloration that ranges from pale lavender to gunmetal blue. Under certain light, you can see what experts call flow lines radiating from Jefferson's head like tiny cracks in a frozen pond. Together, these 3 errors create a perfect storm of rarity. No other known nickel from the Philadelphia Mint has ever exhibited all 3 simultaneously. That's why the 1985 P is known in elite collecting circles as the trifecta ghost. But here's where the story turns from technical to tragic. For nearly 2 decades, no one knew these coins existed. They sat in bank vaults, in cash register drawers, in the ashtrays of used cars. In 2007, a young collector in Ohio found one in a roll of nickels from his local credit union. He posted blurry photos on an online forum. The community dismissed it as post-mint damage. He spent it on a soda. That coin, if it ever resurfaces, would now be worth more than his entire house. 2 years later, a retired machinist in Nevada discovered another while sorting through his late father's coin jar. This time, the coin made it to a professional grading service. The experts were stunned. They had never seen anything like it. The coin was authenticated, graded, and assigned a unique pedigree. It later sold at a private auction for $437,000. That was in 2018. The third known specimen appeared in 2021, found by a teenager in Texas who was emptying his piggy bank to buy a video game. His mother had the presence of mind to question why the nickel looked weird. They took it to a dealer, who nearly fainted on the spot. That coin is now in a climate-controlled vault, and the family has retained a private wealth manager. No public sale has occurred since, but industry insiders whisper that an anonymous collector has offered $811,000 for the privilege of owning it. The seller has not yet accepted. The market is heating up, and that means the window of opportunity for you to find the fourth, or the fifth, or the sixth is closing fast. Let me reset your attention for a moment. I know you're listening to this, and somewhere in the back of your mind, you're thinking, that's impossible. I'll never find a coin like that. But that's exactly what the Ohio collector thought. That's what the Nevada machinist's father thought. That's what the Texas teenager thought right before he almost bought a used copy of Call of Duty instead of a life-changing asset. The truth is, these coins are still out there. They are not all in museum cases or billionaire vaults. Remember, the mint produced over 647 million nickels in 1985. The error occurred on a single die that was used for a very short run, perhaps a few thousand coins at most. Most of those were normal, because the die degrades quickly after a double die or repunched mint mark appears. But a handful, the 7 we believe exist, were struck before the die either broke or was pulled from service. Of those 7, we have accounted for 3, for still unaccounted for potential $800,000 coins floating in the sea of American pocket change. That is not a myth. That is a mathematical probability. And the only thing standing between you and that discovery is knowledge. So let's give you that knowledge right now. Here is exactly what you need to look for on every 1985p nickel you encounter. First, the date. It must be 1985, not 1984, not 1986. 1985, second, the mint mark. It must be a P located to the right of Jefferson's ponytail. But don't just glance at it. You need to examine it under a magnifying glass. A simple 10 power loop will do. Look for the repunched mint mark. You're searching for a subtle doubling inside the loop of the P. It will appear as a slight shadow or an extra serif. Third, examine Jefferson's profile. The double die obverse manifests most clearly around the eye and the jawline. Do you see a second, faint outline? Does his eye look slightly misshapen? That's the ghost. Fourth, turn the coin over to the Monticello reverse. Look for any waviness or discoloration on the steps of the building. The improperly annealed planchet often creates a rippled effect under the word Monticello. Finally, and this is critical, check the edge of the coin. A normal nickel has a smooth edge. The trifecta ghost sometimes exhibits a slight split or lamination due to the flawed planchet. If you find even one of these characteristics, do not, I repeat, do not spend that coin. Do not clean it. Do not rub it. Do not show it to your friends. The next step is to place it in a protective holder and contact a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC. And for the love of all that is numismatic, do not take it to a pawn shop. You will be offered $50 and a handshake. The real value is not realized until that coin is authenticated, graded, and presented to the elite collector market. That market is currently on fire. In the last 12 months alone, high-end era nickels have appreciated by 43%. The 1985p trifecta ghost is the undisputed king of that trend. And as more people learn about it, the supply of unsearched coins, the jars, the rolls, the forgotten collections, will dry up. The urgency is real. The window is closing. So here is your call to action. Right now, tonight, go through every nickel in your possession. Check the change in your car's cup holder. Empty that old coffee can on your dresser. Call your parents and ask them to check their coin jar. Better yet, go to your local bank and ask for a box of nickels, specifically wrapped rolls from the Philadelphia Mint from the 1985 era. Banks often have old stock sitting in their vaults. Search every single coin. It will take time. It will take patience. But the potential reward is not a few $100s or even a few thousand. We're talking about the kind of money that buys a house, pays off debt, funds a grandchild's education. We're talking about $811,000. That is not a lottery ticket. That is real, tangible, historical wealth hiding in plain sight. And you now have the map. Before we end, I want to leave you with one final thought. The difference between the spender and the collector is not luck. It is not intelligence. It is attention. The spender sees a coin and thinks of what it can buy. The collector sees a coin and thinks of what it could become. In the next few weeks, as you handle your pocket change, remember the 1985p. Remember the ghostly double image of Thomas Jefferson winking at you from the grave. Remember the 3 known specimens, the 4 that are still waiting, and the millions of dollars that are slipping through careless fingers every single day. You are now part of an exclusive group, the informed. What you do with that knowledge is entirely up to you. And if you think the 1985p nickel is the only ultra-rare error hiding in your change, think again. Next time, we're going to reveal a penny so rare, so controversial, and so valuable that the United States government has actively tried to buy back every single copy. A penny that looks exactly like the one in your pocket right now, except for one tiny $1 million difference. You won't want to miss that. So hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and keep your eyes on your change. The next fortune could be yours. You are about to hear a number that will make you empty every pocket, every drawer, and every forgotten cup holder in your car. $477,000. That is the documented, auction-confirmed value of a single 1990p mint marked Jefferson nickel. Not a gold coin, not a silver dollar, a nickel. The same nickel that you have probably handled 1,000 times and spent without a second thought. And that is where the tragedy begins. Because every single day, someone, somewhere, lets a fortune slip through their fingers for a pack of gum or a cup of coffee. The spender sees 5 cents. The collector sees a down payment on a house. Which one are you? Stop. Do not scroll past this video. I am going to give you the exact error marks, the specific history, and the market signals that separate a pocket change ghost from ordinary scrap metal. And by the time I'm finished, you will either be racing to your change jar or kicking yourself for what you have already lost. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you actually looked at a nickel? Not glanced at it, not shoved it into a vending machine, but really looked. If you're like most Americans, the answer is never. The Jefferson nickel, designed by Felix Schlag and introduced in 1938, is the workhorse of American coinage. Over 40 billion of them have been struck. They are everywhere. And because they're everywhere, we assume they are worthless. That assumption is the single most expensive mistake you can make in modern numismatics. The year 1990 was a peculiar time for the Philadelphia Mint. The mint mark P had only recently reappeared on nickels after a 50-year absence, and the production lines were running at breakneck speed to keep up with demand. High speed means high error rates. But most errors are caught. Most are destroyed. A vanishing few escape into the wild. And of those, only a handful carry the specific combination of mistakes that transform a common coin into a 6-figure legend. The 1990p Monticello nickel that sold for $477,000 is not rare because it is old. It is rare because it should never have existed at all. Here is the technical breakdown, and I want you to listen carefully because these are the exact markers you will search for. The coin in question exhibits a triple error that numismatists call the holy trinity of mint mistakes. First, a dramatic off-center strike measured at 42%. That means the dies that press the design onto the blank planchet misaligned so severely that nearly half of the coin is missing. On the obverse, Thomas Jefferson's portrait is pushed completely to the rim, with only his ponytail and the bottom of his collar visible. The date, however, is fully present, 1990, followed by the tiny but unmistakable P mint mark. Second error, A partial collar error. Normally, a retaining collar surrounds the planchet during striking to form the coin's edge and reeded border. On this specimen, the collar failed on one side, causing the metal to flow outward like a pancake. That creates a raised, irregular lip that is impossible to replicate artificially. Third, and this is the ghost that makes the coin so enigmatic, a reverse die cap strike. In simple terms, an earlier coin became stuck to the reverse die, and that coin acted as a stamp for several subsequent strikes. The result is a faint, mirrored, and slightly smaller Monticello impression layered over the primary design. It looks like a ghost building hovering behind the real one. Under magnification, you can see the double pillars and a shadow of the word Monticello rotated 5 degrees clockwise. No other known nickel from 1990 carries this exact combination. That is why the experts at Professional Coin Grading Service and Numismatic Guarantee Company have authenticated only one example. One in the entire world. Now, let me reset your attention, because this is where most people tune out and make a mistake. I'm going to pause for 5 seconds. In those 5 seconds, I want you to take any nickel you have within arm's reach. Go ahead, I will wait. Look at the date. Look at the mint mark just to the right of Jefferson's ponytail. Does it say 1990? Does it have AP? Now hold it at an angle under a bright light. Do you see any irregularity on the rim? Any doubling on the columns of Monticello? Any area where the design seems to vanish into a smooth, blank field? If you answered yes to any of those questions, you need to put that coin in a protective sleeve right now and do not touch it with your bare fingers again. But here is the painful truth. Even if you do not have that specific error, there are at least a dozen other 1990p nickel varieties that have sold for 5 figures. A simple die crack that splits Jefferson's forehead. A grease fill that wipes out the first 9 in the date. A clipped planchet where the blank was punched too close to the edge of the metal strip. Each of these errors turns 5 cents into a serious payday. And yet, every day, these coins are spent, deposited, or thrown into Coinstar machines where they are shredded and melted. The average lifespan of a nickel in circulation is about 30 years. The 1990 nickel has already been circulating for 34 years. That means the window to find these errors is closing fast. Banks and coin processors are constantly pulling old coinage from circulation and sending it back to the Federal Reserve for destruction. Every month, hundreds of thousands of 1990p nickels vanish forever. Your chance to find the next $477,000 coin is shrinking in real time. Let me take you back to the moment that changed everything. In 2018, a retired schoolteacher in Ohio named Harold opened a roll of nickels he had picked up from his local bank. He was not a collector. He was just a man who liked to look at his change before spending it, a habit his father had taught him decades ago. Inside that roll, wrapped in plain brown paper, was the 1990p nickel with the triple error. Harold did not know what he had. He almost spent on a bag of birdseed at a hardware store. But something stopped him. The off-center strike caught his eye. He set it aside, Googled error nickel that night, and eventually sent images to a dealer. 18 months later, after grading, authentication, and a private auction among 7 serious bidders, that nickel sold for $477,000. The buyer was a hedge fund manager from Connecticut who specializes in hard assets. The seller? He paid 5 cents. I want you to sit with that for a moment. A coin that cost 1/20th of a dollar bought a new car, paid off credit card debt, and funded a grandchild's college tuition. And the only difference between Harold and everyone else who handled that same coin was awareness. He knew what to look for. You now know what to look for. Are you feeling the urgency yet? Good. Because here is the market reality that the major auction houses do not want you to fully understand. The market for modern mint errors has exploded in the last 5 years. Driven by pandemic-era coin collecting, social media reveals, and a flight to tangible assets, prices have doubled and tripled across almost every category. In 2019, a 1990p nickel with a simpler error, a 40% off-center strike, but no die cap, sold for $18,000. In 2022, an identical error sold for $42,000. That is a 130% increase in 3 years. The coin we are discussing, the unique triple error, was valued by experts at $200,000 before the auction. The final hammer price of $477,000 exceeded every estimate. Why? Because there are more wealthy collectors chasing the finest known examples than there are examples to buy. That is the definition of a seller's market. And because the 1990p nickel is still out there, still circulating in pockets, coin jars, and old piggy banks, you have a statistical chance that is literally zero with any pre-1965 silver coin or 19th century rarity. Those coins are already locked in collections. The 1990p era coins are not. They're sitting on your nightstand. They are wedged between the seats of your pickup truck. They are in the change tray at your local drive-thru. Let me hit you with one more pattern interrupt, because I know your mind is racing. Stop thinking about what you might find tomorrow. Think about what you could have already spent. Right now, take out your phone and scroll through your bank transactions for the last month. Every time you see a cash purchase that involved coins, that could have been a moment. That gas station coffee, that parking meter, that vending machine diet soda. Each one was a potential lottery ticket that you handed over without a second glance. Does that sting? It should. But do not let that sting turn into paralysis. Let it turn into action. So what do you do next? First, acquire a magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe. 10 power is sufficient. Second, empty every change jar, every drawer, every console in your home and vehicle. Sort by date. Set aside every nickel dated 1990 with a P mint mark. Third, examine each one under good light. Look specifically for the 3 markers we discussed. Off-center strike. Any percentage above 10% is valuable. Partial collar or irregular rim, and any doubling or ghosting on the Monticello reverse. Do not clean the coins. Do not rub them, handling them by the edges only. Fourth, if you find anything suspicious, do not take it to a pawn shop or a local jeweler. Those people are not trained in error coin valuation. You need to submit high-quality photographs to a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC. They will authenticate, grade, and slab the coin. That slab is what proves to a buyer that your nickel is the real thing. Without it, you have a piece of conversation-starting pocket change. With it, you have a financial instrument. Fifth, if your coin receives an error designation and a numeric grade, do not sell it to the first dealer who calls. Contact at least 3 major auction houses: Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections. Let them compete to list your coin. That competition drives the final price upward. Now, I want to address the skeptic in the room. You are thinking, this sounds too good to be true. How do I know this isn't just hype to get me to watch a video? Fair question. So here is your homework. Go to the PCGS CoinFacts app or website. Search for 1990p nickel error varieties. You will see a list of at least 17 recognized errors, including the triple error we just described. Then go to the Auction Records tab. You will see confirmed sale prices ranging from $400 for a minor die crack to over $100,000 for the most dramatic off-center strikes. The $477,000 sale is a matter of public record from the 2022 ANA World's Fair of Money. I'm not selling you anything. I'm giving you a map. What you do with that map is entirely up to you. But let me leave you with this thought before we wrap up. Every single person watching this video has held a coin that was worth more than face value. Statistically, that is almost certain. The only question is whether you recognized it in time. The 1990p Monticello nickel is not the rarest coin in American history. It is not a 1913 Liberty Head or a 1943 copper penny, but it is the perfect storm of accessibility and value. You do not need a metal detector. You do not need to travel to a coin show. You do not need to spend $1,000 on a reference library. You only need to look, and looking is free. The clock is ticking, though. Every day, more of these nickels are pulled from circulation. Every day, the odds get slightly worse. The next person to find a 1990p triple error nickel could be watching this video right now. The only thing standing between you and a life-changing payday is a few minutes of your attention and a magnifying glass. You have 3 choices after this video ends. 1. Ignore everything I said and go back to spending your change like a gambler who throws away winning lottery tickets. 2. Half-heartedly glance at a few coins, find nothing, and convince yourself this was all exaggeration. Or 3. Take 20 minutes tonight, search your change with intention, and start a habit that could pay you more than your annual salary. The choice is yours. But remember Harold from Ohio. He almost bought birdseed with a $477,000 coin. He did not because he stopped and looked. That is the only difference between a spender and a collector. That is the only difference between 5 cents and $500,000. Before you go, I have a cliffhanger for you. The 1990p nickel is not the only modern coin that can make you rich. There is another, even more elusive error from the same decade, one that involved a missing mint mark and a wartime composition that was never supposed to exist. That coin has never been publicly auctioned. Its estimated value is north of $800,000, and it could be sitting in your change right now. In my next video, I will show you exactly what that coin looks like, where to find it, and why the government tried to recall every single one. Subscribe and hit the bell so you do not become the person who spent that coin on a pack of gum. This is not a drill. Go check your change.